Hey, guess what's happening on this week's episode of the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with your friend and host, Oscar Camejo.
Let me start off by saying this. You know what? Just because you or someone you know may be struggling with overeating or maybe overweight, that does not mean that you are a failure. If you're feeling like a failure right now, I know exactly what you're dealing with. We've all been through struggles. We've been on the struggle bus before. When it comes to our eating and trying to lose weight, it's been a challenge. Yeah, we can beat ourselves up for the cheat meal we had over the weekend. Yeah, you and I can beat ourselves up and feel ashamed for what we considered letting ourselves go. But you know what? Your shortcomings when it comes to food and giving into your food cravings does not mean that you are a failure. And it definitely doesn't mean that you're a loser. You know, I'm a part of a Facebook community group. It's for diabetics and people who are looking to overcome diabetes and even treat diabetes and so forth. And I was scrolling through the group and I was just seeing all these different posts from people wanting to know, can I eat chocolate? Can I eat this or can I do that? Is oat milk sugar-free or semi-sweet milk good for type 2 diabetics? People want to know. Because you know what? There's so many things out there that tell you don't do this and don't do that. Watch your blood sugar. One person talked about how their blood sugar was over 450 milligrams per deciliter. And they were wanting to know, like, wow, is that bad? There's people who are wanting to know, can I eat this snack or can I eat that snack? Can I drink this or can I eat that? They want to know what drinks are safe. It's so many issues that a lot of people are dealing with. But like I said before, your shortcomings when it comes to your food and what you're eating and what you may have given into when it comes to your food cravings doesn't make you a failure or a loser. I want you to stop beating yourself up. Living with type 2 diabetes can be overwhelming, especially when struggling with food cravings and the urge to overeat. Many people have experienced moments of going overboard. So overboard that you feel guilty and you feel frustrated. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're wondering how to regain control of your eating habits and reverse the effects of type 2 diabetes if you've been diagnosed with diabetes or maybe pre-diabetes. That's why I felt so strongly that in today's episode, I need to have a heart-to-heart conversation with you all. I need to let you know that it's important for us to dive into those common challenges that many people face, including diabetics, not just diabetics, but including diabetics. Those who are overweight and they feel as if their eating is way out of control. Sometimes when we see posts on social media or on YouTube and people are talking about overeating, some people automatically kind of go into this cocoon. Well, I don't want you to go into a cocoon. I don't want you to go into a shell. I want you to stand bold. I want you to listen to this entire episode because I believe it's for you. In this week's episode, we're going to explore some common problems that occur from habitual overeating, including weight gain and difficulty managing your blood sugar levels. You see, I'm not just here to talk about the problems, though, but rather we're going to also provide some solutions. Let's have a conversation, folks. Throughout this episode, I'm going to share some practical tips. I'm going to share some insights. And most importantly, I'm going to share with you my story, which is the story of many people, because my story and the story of many people who overcome and have experienced success will inspire and empower you on your journey towards better health. So whether you're looking to understand what overeating is and recognize whether or not you are a habitual overeater, or you simply want to discover realistic steps to develop healthier eating habits, I'm here to help you make lifestyle changes that are sustainable, that you can be proud of. So, my friend, stick around to hear the rest of today's episode. You don't want to miss it. Let's go. Be sure to visit the website at www.beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com for access to free resources and other information that will help you along your journey. If you would like to submit a question or comment about the show or to learn more about the Beating Diabetes lifestyle, you can always email me at hello@beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Welcome to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with me, your host, Oscar Camejo, helping diabetics make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes. Folks, it's time to take control over your overeating without giving up the foods that you absolutely love. Before I started my weight loss journey, I can honestly say that I had an unrealistic and unhealthy relationship with food. Yes, I enjoyed food. Yes, I ate sweets. I ate a lot of fried foods, a lot of salads, maybe on occasion, right? But in my mind, I was doing fairly okay until one day I found myself being overweight. I was weighing 268 pounds. And then to find out after being hospitalized that I had type 2 diabetes. Unfortunately, it was because of my relationship with food that led to my condition. You know, this didn't happen overnight, folks. It didn't. Nah. It was a gradual decline in my health over time. You know, looking back, I can honestly say that it was my relationship with food and the choices that I made that really impacted my health and contributed to my poor health. You know, I would overeat and then feel guilty. But that didn't stop me from indulging in foods that I like. You know, like many of you probably, you go to the all-you-can-eat buffets some days on Sundays or on the weekends, whatever, and you just indulge and you have a good time. And you're just not even really thinking about what you're putting in your body. And you know, you got to slow down. You know, you need to eat less. But, you know, let's be honest, when you're out with family and friends and you're having a good time, most of us, we're not thinking about, you know, how much we're eating or what exactly we're eating and the effect that it could have on our bodies. Yeah, we may be overweight, but we're not thinking that, hey, man, you know, eating all that fried food, that's going to put on some more pounds. That's going to be hard to get off if we don't do what we need to do. You see, losing over 80 pounds, yeah, that's what I was able to do in less than a year. It was not easy. Those first 5 pounds was not easy because guess what? I was struggling with, you know, food and overeating. I was also dealing with some personal stuff, which kind of contributed to, you know, me eating and just kind of letting myself go. And like so many people, I thought I could handle it. You know, it was like, okay, I'm just going through this and tomorrow I'll be fine, right? It'll be okay. But you know what? To be honest, when I lost my first 5 pounds, it felt like a victory, but I knew I still had to deal with my overeating and my relationship with food. Now, I didn't come to that realization overnight. It really took a series of conversations with people. It took me listening to podcasts. It took me educating myself on health and nutrition to really allow the opportunity for the light bulb to turn on. And I'm so glad, folks, that I finally built the motivation and received the inspiration to really change. You see, folks, yeah, I meet a lot of people who are struggling and they want to change. They know they're having issues. They know that this has gotten out of control. And some people received a diagnosis from their doctor that, hey, if you don't turn things around, things are going to get worse. Some people hadn't gone to the doctor, but they know that something is kind of going wrong inside, but they're kind of too scared to go to the doctor. Now, listen, if you're on either side of the road, whether you know what's going on because you went to the doctor or you're scared to go to the doctor, but you know something is going on. Listen, I don't want you to stay stuck in that place of fear, that place of not knowing if you're going to live or die. I don't want to be morbid, but I want to be encouraging. Listen, folks, your health is all that you have. You see, you may be a career person. You may be traveling a lot like I did years ago. And you just grab whatever you can and you just don't have time to really think about your health, folks, it's time to take your health seriously. Listen, you tuned into this podcast for a reason. You decided to press play for a reason. Maybe this is your first time tuning in. Maybe this is your 100th time listening to my podcast. And you're ready to finally turn things around. But there's this big mountain in front of you, and it's a mountain of food. It's your mountain that you know you have to conquer. You know you have to defeat it, but it's hard. Listen, folks, I am living proof that you do not have to give up enjoying foods that you really like in order to see results. But you do have to give up the unhealthy things that are contributing to poor health. Now, there's a difference. I didn't give up eating chicken, let's say, or beef. I just changed how I eat. I don't eat fried foods anymore because fried foods were contributing to poor health. I don't eat fried fish anymore because it was contributing to high cholesterol for me. I still eat fish. I just eat baked fish or blackened fish, or you see what I'm saying? So we can have and go for better options. So instead of giving up the foods that you really like, you can set a goal like I did to help you develop a better relationship with food to the point where your choices when it comes to food are healthier choices that you can enjoy. Folks, I'm telling you, when I got the revelation that I don't have to just eat salads and I can still enjoy eating chicken or beef, or let's say if I do want to eat salads, I eat a variety of types of salads and I still enjoy the foods that I love. I remember when I was eating a lot of bread and a lot of rice, a lot of pasta and stuff like that, I was getting very little vegetables. But the more and more I start eating or putting healthier things in my body, such as vegetables, the more and more my body wanted the healthier things and the less unhealthy things that my body wanted. That didn't happen overnight, folks. You see, my story, maybe your story, and like so many other stories. So I want you to imagine a person named, let's call her Sarah. Sarah, she loves going out to eat with her friends. Every time she goes to a restaurant, she feels a need to try multiple appetizers, a large main course, and of course, that favorite chocolate dessert. Even when she's already full, Sarah finds herself ordering more food because everything looks good. They look delicious. Everything looks delicious. She often leaves the restaurant feeling uncomfortably stuffed. But guess what she tells herself? It's okay because I'll just eat less tomorrow. At home, she keeps a stash of snacks in her pantry or in the closet or in the drawer somewhere where everybody else in the household don't know where her secret stash is. And guess what? She often finds herself mindlessly munching on those chips or those cookies. And if she's at home by herself, guess what she does? She turns on the television and she eats the popcorn, she eats the chips, she eats the cookies. And guess what she tells herself? I'm just snacking a little bit. But guess what it does? That little bit of snacking, that little bit of grazing, as we call it, it adds up quickly. Despite feeling guilty about what she's doing and her eating habits, Sarah struggles to break the cycle of overeating. And guess what? One day, she notices that her clothes are getting tighter and tighter, and she feels more sluggish than usual. She realizes that her habit of overeating has not only affected her weight, but also her energy. And her energy levels are being sapped. And her overall well-being is not where she wants it to be. And guess what? With that realization, Sarah decides to start practicing mindful eating. Then she starts paying attention to her hunger cues, when she's really hungry versus when she's not. And then she starts choosing healthier food options. And guess what she does over time? She learns to enjoy meals without overeating and feels more in control of her eating habits. You see, folks, this, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're Sarah or Steve, or like how I was, once you come to that understanding that, you know what, man, enough is enough, and you start feeling the bulge, if you will, you start squeezing your love handles, fellas, right? And you look in the mirror, you're like, come on, man, this is getting out of control. You step on that scale and you're like, dang, where did all this weight come from? Come on, you and I know where that weight came from. But you know what? We can either beat ourselves up, like I said earlier, we can continue feeling shame and let that shame keep us from making healthier choices. And we just keep repeating the cycle of overeating because we feel bad about ourselves. Folks, listen, I am Mr. Positive. My blood type is O positive. I tell people that positivity runs through my veins, literally. But there was a time in my life when I felt very ashamed of myself. I didn't like looking in the mirror. I didn't like stepping on the scale because I'm like, dude, how did you let yourself go? And you know what? It's so funny. What's not really funny, but when I started my TikTok channel and I was talking about my weight loss journey and I had put up a picture of what I look like, this guy, I guess he was trying to heckle me. He was like, dude, how did you let yourself go like that? And I'm like, wow, it was true. I did let myself go, but nobody wants to be on social media and see somebody telling them like, yeah, dude, you let yourself go. Yeah, you may be feeling like, oh man, I let myself go and I don't like how these clothes fit. And fellas, you buy the button up shirt or the button down shirt and you can't button the top collar. I don't want you to feel bad about it. I've been there. I know what it feels like going from a 3X to possibly a 4X. And feeling like, dang, man, I'm at a 4X. Yeah. And I'm not making light of what you're going through, guys, ladies. We all have been there where you step on the scale and you look down and you're like, I just want to throw this scale out the window and smash it into 1,000,003 pieces. But guess what, folks? I don't want us to live by what the scale says. I don't want us to feel happy or sad by what the scale says. We don't let the scale define our happiness or dictate our happiness. Our happiness starts within. But a lot of times I know when we're dealing with depression, when we're dealing with the struggles of overeating and, you're going on these roller coaster diets and you're just kind of overwhelmed with all this stuff out there. Should you get surgery? Should you take the diet pill or not? Should you take Ozempic or not? Should you take this pill or go through this program or not? Listen, folks, I was able to lose over 80 pounds in less than a year by being very practical. I don't believe all this stuff needs to be so complicated, but guess what? We have to deal with the reality of our habits. We have to deal with the reality of, yeah, one cookie was okay, but maybe I shouldn't have eaten 6. We got to deal with the reality that, yeah, they had donuts at the office for the office breakfast party, whatever. And I ate 6 donuts, one in front of everybody. But I went back into the break room because they had the leftover donuts and nobody saw me take the other 3 or 4 or 5 donuts. Yeah, nobody saw me cut the donut in half or the bagel in half the first time. And then I went back and got the other half. Folks, we can hide snacks all we want. We can sneak to the vending machine when nobody's there and rush to our office to hide the snacks and so forth. Or go to our car during lunchtime and go to the drive-thru and pick up all kinds of stuff that we know we shouldn't eat. We can keep doing that. Yeah, you can keep doing that. But you've been doing that. And the results have been overweight, dealing with type 2 diabetes, dealing with high blood pressure, dealing with high cholesterol and some other complications. So enough is enough, folks. But there are some people who are dealing with overeating, but they don't realize it, or it just really hadn't clicked. Maybe for you, you think that, hey, it's no big deal. My eating is okay. I know I have to lose weight, but my eating is not my issue. My issue is not I'm not working out enough. Well, folks, let me say this. You cannot out exercise a poor diet. You just can't. So I want to give you a list of some signs that a person may be experiencing or dealing with if they are habitually overeating. So if you find yourself on this list, I want you to be honest with yourself and be like, yeah, I am overeating and I need to do something about it. Okay. Number one, eating past actually being full. You're regularly eating until you're feeling uncomfortably full or bloated. That's eating past being fullness. You don't have to feel bloated and uncomfortable in order to be satisfied. But maybe that's you. You're eating past actually being full. Number two, frequent snacking, like our story with Sarah earlier, right? Frequently just getting up. Maybe you're working from home and in between calls or whatnot, you go to the refrigerator or you go to the chips and you just grab something and you just start eating, but you're not even thinking about it. It's just a habit. You're constantly snacking throughout the day, even when you're not hungry. That could be a telltale sign. Number three, emotional eating. You're turning to food as a coping mechanism for stress. Maybe you're bored and you eat. Maybe you're sad and you eat. And you're dealing with other emotions and you eat. Hey, I've been there. I used to think of myself as a walrus, folks. Just was dealing with all kind of stuff, relationship issues, and stressed out because of stuff was going on at work years ago. And food just felt comfortable, man. Number four, mindless eating. That kind of goes back to, eating past fullness, as I mentioned before. But you're just eating without paying attention to your hunger cues. You're not even paying attention to your portion size. You're eating. Maybe you're eating while distracted by TV. You're on the phone talking with your friends. You're on social media and you're just eating and you're just not paying attention. Number five, eating way too quickly. My mom said when I was growing up, I used to just eat way too fast. It's like, slow down. You need to enjoy your food. And as adults, sometimes we still do that. We eat so quickly that we go back and eat something else. And we don't even give our bodies a chance to register the fact that, hey, I just ate some food. You know what I'm saying? Consuming meals rapidly without, taking a chance to enjoy the food. That can lead to overconsumption of food, folks. Number six, using food as a reward, or on the opposite spectrum, using it as punishment. Yeah, some people have an eating disorder and they punish themselves and they eat more and more. Some people associate food with a reward system or a punishment system. Like, hey, I did good this week, so I deserve a treat, or I messed up, so I'll just eat this and feel better anyway. Number seven, we kind of talked about this already, hoarding or hiding food. You going and you're stockpiling food, and then you're going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to eat this food later. So you just stockpile it and, you have your go-to stash. Yeah, that could be a sign that you're overeating and you have an unhealthy relationship with food. Number eight, feeling guilt or regret. We've already touched on that. Experiencing guilt and regret or shame after you're eating, especially when it involves excessive amount of foods. Yeah, sometimes that can be a challenge. That could be a sign that you're habitually overeating. Number nine, your weight is fluctuating. You're noticing, man, your weight is going up and down. You have weight gain and cycles and overeating because of overeating. And then you have periods where you're saying, okay, I'm just going to restrict my eating and I'm just going to just go cold turkey. But then you pick up the cycle and you're just overeating. Number 10, and this is the last one, social isolation. You're in those situations where you avoid being with others when it comes to food and you're just feeling so self-conscious. You're like, yeah, you may go out with your coworkers, but you just get a little bit of food in front of everybody because you're overweight. Everybody around you seems thinner than you, or in your mind looks thinner than you. And you're feeling like, oh man, everybody's thinking that, oh, well, yeah, here's the big girl or the big guy. Look at them overeating, and people are watching your plate, and you're just so self-conscious. And so in front of them, you just get the salad or you just get a little bit of food, but you're starving and you're hungry. And you just decide, okay, when on my way home or back to my desk, I am going to eat more food. And then because you were dealing with social isolation and limiting what you were eating before, you just go all out and you just decide, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. I feel free. And then the cycle keeps going on and on and on. You see, folks, when we start recognizing what these signs are, that can be and will be the first crucial steps that you take in addressing overeating and habitually overindulging in food consumption. You see, it's time to make some positive changes towards healthier eating habits. Listen, our relationship with food is something that we have to take seriously. We have to really pay attention to what's going on in our lives that cause us to either overeat, overindulge in food. One cheat meal turns into another cheat meal, and so forth. But when it comes to our physiology, our bodies do need food, folks. I'm not saying for us not to eat. I don't want anybody to go to the extreme and say, okay, well, I hear what you're saying, Oscar. I'm just not going to overeat. I'm just going to eat one meal a day and that's it. I'm going to fast for 30 days to get these 30 pounds off of me. Folks, you don't have to do that to lose weight. You don't have to go to from one extreme to the next. No, food is for fuel and for nourishment. But what I keep trying to drive home, what we put in our bodies is very important. And what we do with our body is also important. Folks, we can't live without food. I'm not telling you to go vegan. I'm not telling you to go plant-based. I'm not telling you to go on any specific diet plan. What I'm sharing with you is that it's important for us to examine our relationship with food. Because listen, if you don't examine your relationship with food and really see what's going on, you're going to stay in that cycle. You see, food plays an important role in our lives. Listen, I grew up in a Caribbean household. Mom is Jamaican, dad is Cuban. And food was an important part of our culture. My dad had a lot of friends. We would go walk in the neighborhood and we would go from one house to the next. And it seems like everybody had food going on, like some party. And it was just great. So I don't want you to be stuck in social isolation where you're not being genuine and authentic. Our experiences and our memories are tied to food, or I can say food is tied to our memories and our experiences with families and so forth. We build connections over meals. Some of us do, right? Some of us who don't choose to just eat in isolation and not be around people. You see, we also develop emotional attachments with food. When babies are born, when they're hungry, what do they typically do? They don't just sit there and stay quiet, right? They don't just sit there and just meow, meow. No, they start hollering, right? They're uncomfortable. And guess what comforts them? Food, which is, if they're breastfed or, as they get older, they start eating, solid food. So what I'm saying is from an early age, we associate food with comfort. And so we develop an emotional attachment to food. So there's nothing wrong with feeling comfortable or happy after a good meal. Folks, I went to a restaurant today and I had some great seafood. And I mean, it was salmon with some veggies, sauteed vegetables. It was like spinach, squash, zucchini. They had some peppers in there and some tomatoes. And man, they had this dill sauce on it that was delicious, man. It was so good. And I felt so good while I was eating that food and afterwards. It was so good that I could have ordered a second plate, but I didn't because, I don't have to overeat. It was a very healthy meal. I love salmon. It was blackened, by the way. So my association with that meal was, oh man, I just love it. I love how they prepared it. I love the presentation. I took a picture of it and I'm like, dude, I'm coming back to this place and I'm ordering the same meal. So I have an emotional attachment to that meal in that restaurant. But let's be honest. What kind of emotional attachment do we have with food? Is it healthy or unhealthy? I'm not talking about the actual food itself being healthy as if it's, vegetables versus fried pork sandwich or whatever. I'm talking about our emotional well-being, our emotional health. You have some people who have an unhealthy relationship with food and an unhealthy attachment to food. So if you want to make lifelong changes to your health and well-being, you have to begin addressing all aspects and all influences to your relationship with food. The physiological, right? That's because your body needs nourishment. The psychological, what you think when it comes to your food, your social well-being, your social relationship with food and others. How do you eat when you're around people? And again, your emotional well-being, your emotional attachment to food. So again, remember those things that I mentioned before about determining whether you have an unhealthy relationship with food? I want you to hear these, but from a different perspective. Now that I've shared all this with you, if you're feeling shame or guilt when you eat certain foods or you eat more than you should, that's unhealthy. That's an unhealthy relationship with food, that shame and guilt. When certain foods, you just say it's just completely off limits. Yeah, there's certain things that may be off limits, but when you just say, well, I'm just not going to eat chicken because chicken is just completely off limits. It's unhealthy. I'm not going to eat that because, I don't know. There's a bunch of reasons why people say this particular thing is off limits. So I'm not going to eat that. Instead, I'm just going to eat salads. Okay. Is that a healthy relationship with food? You answer that. You can't control your eating and you tend to overeat without realizing it. We talked about that. You find yourself eating when you're not hungry. We talked about that. You find yourself eating in response to emotions like disappointment, anger, stress, nervousness, or even excitement. You start focusing on your calories and your macros to determine, well, you know what? This paper said I need to watch my macros. So I need to count out 14 peanuts and eat no more than 14 peanuts. Or I need to count out this amount of rice and eat no more than that. Yeah, you can count out your calories. But listen, folks, I lost 80 pounds, over 80 pounds in less than a year without counting my macros, without even counting my calories. I just built a lifestyle of eating healthy and making healthier options. Let's move on. You've tried numerous diets and you don't have any success behind any of that. Your food choices determine the quality or success of your day. If you had a good meal, good healthy meal, then you're happy. If you had a cheap meal, then you're sad. Come on, folks. What's up with your relationship with food? Is it unhealthy or not? You believe that your daily food choices are a reflection of who you are. Yeah, that's tough, folks. And I shared this before. you avoid eating around other people because you're shame, man. You're just feeling all this shame. You feel anxiety. You feel stress before going to certain social events and social settings because you know, hey, there's going to be some food around. So I wanted to spend all of this time to present to you all of these different things that a lot of us deal with psychologically and mentally, because right now you are between a rock and a hard place, or you're at that fork in the road and you're literally probably some of you are like, hey, I'm about to go to the drive-thru right now and get a burger. And you're like, man, do I really need to get this? I'm busy. You make excuses. You're like, hey, I'm just hungry. I don't have time to stop and cook pick up something to cook. I'm just going to eat this and tomorrow I'll change. I mean, you can. That burger may not hurt you, but you know, what are you going to do? You see, guys, I just want you to think about the choices that you make every day. I don't want you to keep dealing with shame. I don't want you to keep dealing with guilt and so forth, because, man, it's crazy. So what's the solution? Where do we go from here? Well, we need to develop healthy relationships with food. You see, a healthy relationship with food involves relieving yourself of the pressure of trying to eat perfectly. Let me say that again. A healthy relationship with food involves relieving yourself of the pressures of trying to eat perfectly. You see, a healthy relationship with food involves being in control around food versus feeling like food has control over you. So don't diet. Don't jump into these diet cycles and then eventually end up binge eating. You don't need to be on a specific diet to lose weight. You do need to control your eating. But remember, the control starts in your mind. It starts with your emotions. It starts with your desire. So if you truly desire to turn things around, I want you to get to the point where when you see food and foods that you crave, you can get to the point where you're not just jumping towards those things and giving into your cravings. It is possible for you to keep foods you crave out of sight. You see, maybe that's one of the first things you need to do is look around in your house, look around at your office, your desk, you're in your car, and look around. Those foods that you crave, the snacks and so forth, are they within reach? Are they within eyesight? You know, folks, what I did one day, I literally got so fed up of giving into my food cravings that I literally cleared out my entire refrigerator, my cupboard, my cabinets, and anywhere else that I had food. I literally threw everything away. And I had a lot of food. I had a lot of snacks. And I literally just dumped everything in the trash. I don't know how much money worth of food I threw away. It didn't matter. My health was more important. And I literally threw the chips away. I threw the snack bars away. I threw the sugary drinks, poured them down the sink. For me, it was a symbolic representation of enough is enough and I'm making a change. I went that drastic. I literally went in my refrigerator. I got all of the frozen junk stuff that I didn't need, the ice creams, whatever I had in there. I don't know. It was a bunch of stuff. I remember just dumping stuff in the trash. And guess what? I didn't leave the stuff in the trash. I went and put the stuff in the dumpster. I want it out of my house. That's how serious I was. Now, maybe you need to do that or do something else. You need to do what works for you. But the point is, you need to get those foods that you crave out of sight. That was the first step. Same thing at the office. You know, I had to stop going to the vending machine every 30 minutes. I just stopped. I just got very serious. I was like, man, no more sugary drinks, no more soda, no more sweet tea, no more lemonade. That was it. I had to change my relationship with food because I felt like I needed those things. I was mindlessly eating. I was mindlessly just snacking and grazing. And I'm like, dude, I'm making this stuff tough. I'm making my weight loss tough. So that was just one of the first things I did. You see, along with doing those things, I think it's important to eat on a schedule to avoid the roller coaster of hunger. You know, maybe limiting your food to 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's it, or at least work your way towards that. And you know that, hey, you know what? Between breakfast and lunch, I'm not eating anything. And if I do eat something, it's going to be a piece of fruit. I'm not going to eat the office donuts. I'm not going to eat the office bagels. None of that. No. So it's up to you folks. And I love y'all. I'm not jumping on anybody, but sometimes you need to hear from somebody who's been there, done that, and did the work. You can too. We have to choose healthy foods for our meals and snacks. Plain and simple. We want to deal with the overeating. We want to deal with the overindulgence in the bad food. Well, maybe you need to start intaking healthier foods. You see, folks, I made my access to healthier foods more readily available than my access to the non-healthy stuff. And so now I just love it. And people who know me now, they say, oh yeah, Oscar, he's going to eat healthy. People joke about it at work all the time. But then, people ask me, hey, I need some advice on eating healthy. They come to me because they know, hey, Oscar's a health guy now. He's been there, done that. And you also have to be flexible, folks, and not so highly restricted with foods. I know I told you guys to cut some things cold turkey, and that's what you may need to do. I did it, and it helped me. Some things you just got to be flexible and say, hey, I need to work my way into this. But don't use that as an excuse, though. And say, oh, well, yeah, Oscar, I hear what you're saying. I'll throw out all my, unhealthy foods, in a week or so. But, I have family coming in town and my mama loves this. My uncle loves this. And, oh, yeah, the kids love this. And, I got to make sure that I have cookies in the house for the kids when they come home from college. Come on, man. No, you don't. Let them buy that stuff on their own and not bring it in your house. Anyway, I can be on a soapbox about this all day. We can find healthy ways to manage stress, folks, through exercise, reading, meditation, all of that. When you manage stress, it'll help you with not overindulging in food. Because remember, a lot of us have turned to comfort food eating, right? Or turn to comfort food. And we should never be eating when we're stressed out and overly stressed. Instead, go for a walk, man. Exercise, do some reading, meditate on some good stuff. OK, you got to feed your mind. You got to feed your mental health. Learn about nutrition, man. Learn about your health. Watch some positive social media stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the world today. Read some positive articles on health and nutrition. Listen to podcasts like this one, and seek some support. If you're dealing with food addiction, you definitely need to get some professional help. You may need to see a therapist. You may need to see a psychologist. And you also may need to see a nutritionist or a dietitian to help you with the food cravings. You see, folks, when I launched this podcast, my goal was to help people make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes. And I know what it's like to be where you are, but I also know what it's like to come out on the other side successfully developing a positive relationship with food. Not over restricting, not going on these crazy fad diets. We don't have to do any of that. Usually at the end of my podcast, I tell people that I believe in you. And I do believe in you. That's not just some catchy phrase. I believe you tuned into this podcast today because you truly want to change. And you're just struggling. You just need a little boost of encouragement. And if you find that encouragement every week by listening to this podcast, man, I love it. I was talking to somebody today who needed some advice on starting a podcast and, doing their own thing. And they asked me a question like, Oscar, why do you do what you do. Why do you podcast week in and week out? And to be honest, I do it for you guys. I do it for the people. And I truly mean that. You know, folks, I know what it is. I keep saying it all the time. I know what the struggle is. I know the struggle is real. So I do this because when somebody inboxes me on social media, like this guy did, and says, hey, Oscar, I just found your podcast and I've listened to 13 episodes so far. And after each episode, I'm just filled with emotion. I'm filled with tears because you're speaking to me. Man, that's worth it. That's worth people in England who are listening. Those of you who are in Africa who are listening, South America who are listening. You're in Europe and you're listening. Australia and you're listening. Here in the US, California, New York, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, wherever you are on this planet, thank you for taking your health serious enough to not only listen to this podcast, but to make some positive changes in your life. You see, I can't cover everything I want to cover in one episode, folks. But in over the last 100 episodes, I've covered a range of topics from weight loss to diets and food cravings and dealing with sugar addictions, all kind of stuff. And I put content out there because I want you all to have a range of things that you can just pull from. And while we're together for the 35 minutes, 45 minutes, or however long these podcasts end up being, I just want you to take away something that can help you or help your family members. Because at the end of the day, I want to save lives and I want to save limbs. So tell your loved ones, check out my library of episodes. There's a bunch of topics there, guys. So I love you all. Please remember to download my free weight loss planner. It's a powerful tool that you can get through my website at beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com. There's a link to it in the show notes. My goal is to help folks. So I'm giving away this free resource to help you to plan your victory when it comes to losing weight and keeping it off. So as always, my friends, stay focused, keep moving. Never go back, leap forward, bounce back because you can, my friend. And above all else, trust God. You got this. I believe in you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with Oscar Camejo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for motivational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care by a physician or other healthcare professional or qualified fitness instructor. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you're looking for help on your journey, seek a qualified medical practitioner. It's important that you utilize someone who is a trained, licensed healthcare professional who can help you on your journey toward good health.